Welcome to Week 5. We're reading in the Faith of Leap, Chapter 3, which is titled, A Walk on the Wilder Side. The first portion of the book talks about faith itself. Let's look at some highlights. You believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that, and shudder. This is from James 2:19. Even knowing truths about God is not enough to save. The Pharisees had that all pinned down. No, we must actively risk ourselves to the truth that we believe is true, and this in turn involves staking our lives on the person and the promises of God. Seen in this light, faith is the exciting venture in which we bet that God really is, that this is His world, and that He is like Jesus Christ, and that He saves those who love Him with their lives. Therefore, faith is more an act of courage than it is an act of knowledge. Have you experienced this in your own faith walk, that faith is an act of courage? Next, Frost and Hirsch address fear. But make no mistake, excessive or what theologians call disordered fear, if not prayerfully brought under Jesus' centering lordship, can lead us directly to vices such as cowardice, apathy, rage, and violence. Fear causes a kind of contraction of the heart. As such, it inhibits godly actions such as love, hospitality, risky mission, and generosity. This, in turn, becomes a direct barrier to Christian discipleship, which calls us not to contract, but to expand. The Bible claims that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and for good reason. It is probably the only fear that will not cripple us. Because wisdom is the ordering of life in accord with God's will, appropriate fear of God is the only thing that gives us the right perspective of, and puts us into right relationship with, the objects of our perception. Holy reverence is therefore the right basis for coping with life's meaning and problems. Here lies our much-needed perspective. The authors begin to cast a vision that is much bigger than our fears. They say that we can overwhelm fear with bigger and better things, like a sense of adventure. Another thing that can overwhelm fear is the fullness of life that arises when we relocate vulnerabilities and fears within the greater story that is truly more hopeful and less tragic. And they suggest 3 ways of doing this. The first is loving love. Starting from the biblical revelation, saints as well as psychologists of all persuasions affirm that people need to love and learn how to love if they are to grow into mature human beings. To love is to suffer, and that's probably why we generally don't do it well. The second is wild at heart. This plays off of John Eldridge's book, Wild at Heart. But this is not only an issue of masculinity. All Christians, male and female, must recover what it means to be wild at heart. Holy warriors. The Church of Jesus needs to wake up from the exile of passivity and embrace liminality and adventure, or continue to remain a religious ghetto for culturally co-opted, fearful, middle-class folk. Our very souls are at stake. And third, the educational aspects of adventure. Surely it's better to spend whatever gifts we have been given by God in faithful risk-taking than fearfully hide them away. If we fail, at least we will fail faithfully and not fearfully. Expeditionary learning uses adventurous, liminal experiences to create situations of learning, and so the principles are useful for us here. To engender innovation and learning, Frost and Hirsch add these further principles. Foster pioneering and protest. So, doing the same thing over and over is not going to get the job done. This is why we must encourage and grow a pioneering spirit in the lives of our leaders and our church body. This means taking courageous stands when and where the time comes, especially if it is uncomfortable. Stir up holy discontent. If we are going to move toward a better future, Frost and Hirsch say we need to cultivate a holy discontent in our systems and in our own hearts. But this holy discontent doesn't always have to be the result of a heavy-handed prophetic critique of things. Sometimes it will come from what they call a holy sense of curiosity, and it can also look like simply asking good questions. 3. Trade your traditionalism for tradition. In a previous book, The Forgotten Ways, Hirsch suggested that every church already has all it needs to accomplish the tasks it needs to be productive as a church. So this means that part of learning to become better leaders is not to come up with the best faddish ideas, but to recover the potentials and deepest identity that we already have as God's people, as Frost and Hirsch put it. They describe the traditionalist as the, quote, institutional persecutor of change that will subvert the missional cause. On the other hand, we have tradition, which means recognizing that we come from a long line of people who have loved their church. And our history should be recognized. We shouldn't operate in a vacuum. Number 4, be willing to fail forward. For the 4th point, Frost and Hirsch say on page 99, reject rejection. View failure as temporary. View each failure as an isolated incident. Have realistic expectations. Focus on strengths. Vary approaches. And bounce back. Let's turn now to our Week 5 forum discussion questions. Number 1. Consider the following quote. Surely it's better to spend whatever gifts we have been given by God in faithful risk-taking than fearfully hide them away. If we fail, at least we will fail faithfully and not fearfully. How have you seen another leader fail in ministry but have a positive attitude, knowing that the failure was done faithfully, not fearfully? And number 2, where have you seen another leader display holy discontent like the kind described in the following quote? But holy discontent need not always be the result of a prophetic critique of things. It could come about from a holy sense of curiosity and being attentive to the provocatively fertile nature of good, probing questions. Make your initial post by midnight Wednesday. Respond to 2 of your class members' posts by midnight Friday. I look forward to hearing from you.